Hey world, jeg heter Zack the Demon Lord. Hey world, it is I, Zack the Demon Lord, and yet again, another YouTube video. It's been, I think, a few months since I made one of these videos. So I thought today would be a good time. And to be actually truthful, I had shot a series version of this video, but then I just didn't quite like it. And so now I'm reshooting as one singular video and walking in on the topic. And so, what is this video even about? I mean, you could just read the title, or I could explain. At the time I had originally shot it, it had been a mission, the time length of one mission since I had been on my mission, and now it's getting closer to a mission's time length since I physically left for the mission field. But regardless, it has been a mission since I was on my mission, and so here I am, and I'm just going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about my mission, the experiences of that, and my current views of religion. And so let's dig in. So to start off, when I went on my mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I went during COVID. I didn't know COVID was going to happen. I had put in my papers before we had news of COVID, and then as I was getting accepted, COVID had, started out and became a thing, and so I am what you would call a COVID missionary. So my experience is very unique and different from a lot of people's experiences when it comes to missionary service. But yeah, so there's that little bit, and so yeah, digging in more. Because of COVID, one very essential thing that most missionaries get experience is the MTC, or the Missionary Training Center, and because of COVID, I didn't get to go physically to the MTC. What they had done to adapt with COVID is, for those missionaries already in the vicinity, they could go to the MTC and do some computer stuff, I think, a little bit. Or maybe that was a future version, is those near could do stuff on the computers there. But for me, myself, they had the at-home MTC, or as I like to refer to it for myself, the at-church MTC. Because one issue for me is, my place was very chaotic, and so and we didn't really have internet, and the internet we did get was for my mom's work, because she was working at home, and so there's just kind of this idea of it'd be better just to go to the church and use their Wi-Fi there than to do it purely from home. But anyways, it was a purely online experience. They used Zoom and stuff like that. It was fine. I do think my group was kind of a weird mixture. I was one of 6 for my MTC group. 4 guys, 2 girls. Not that that's important. What was funny though, the dynamic is, so for my mission, my original mission call was for South Korea, Korean speaking, and so a little bit of background with the MTC. They simultaneously teach you what you need to know to teach as a missionary, as well as focus on at least getting you a basic grasp of the language you'll be teaching in, which in my case was Korean. And so what was funny though is there's 4 of us white people. The 4 of us white people all got the same call to go to Busan, South Korea, and then the 2 that actually had any Korean heritage, one was 100% Korean. He was a Korean American, and the other one was half, but still had Korean heritage. They both went to California. One got to go to LA, and one got to go to Anaheim for Korean speaking. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious that the Koreans went to California, and the rest of us whiteys went to Korea. Kind of an interesting thing. It kind of makes sense just of cultural stuff, but yeah, not that this is about Korea, it's about missions. So, moving on, that's what an interesting tidbit, and depending on your course, like the language and stuff, they can keep you for different amounts of time. From my memory, I think it was like 12 weeks for me, or maybe 9, something like that. For some reason, though, I got 12 in my head. But, moving along. Because of COVID, though, obviously it was hard to go abroad. Also, because I'm not going to delve too deep into it, but there were some issues going on, that some family issues going on that made it hard for me to get my passport and stuff like that. So, I couldn't go directly to Korea, mainly because of COVID, but also the other stuff would have blocked me anyways. So anyways, what they did with the missionaries that are supposed to go foreign is they gave them a temporary assignment within their own country, and so that's what they did. And so, for half of my mission, what would end up being half of my mission, I spent 1 year, roughly, in the Scottsdale, Arizona mission. And so that's where this story will first start off. I remember it was a very enthralling moment, the start of a journey. I remember just being really excited and also terrified. Not about the mission itself. At that point, I was pretty blind, but I was excited for one reason. It was my first time on a plane. And I'll tell you what, the first plane was a bumpy one because it was at a local, very small airport. And let's just say it was a small plane. That guy probably fit, like, at max 24-ish passengers. It was not big at all. But I remember that. But yeah, and then as far as Arizona itself goes, I gotta say, I love the state. It's very nice. It does get a little hot in the summer if you're in the valley, but it's a nice place. It's beautiful. I miss the palm trees and the cacti. Also miss the random javelina boar. Those were always fun to see, or whatever. I think that's the name of them. I wish I could have found myself some scorpions or some Scolopendra centipedes while I was there, but didn't manage to do that. But it was fun. I did spend half. So, if you're unfamiliar with missions, they have a general border area that the mission encompasses, and they usually have missionaries in specific areas of certain cities. Anyways, I spent about half my time in Arizona in northern Phoenix, and the other half up in the mountains around the Show Low area. I mean, half of it was in Show Low, but anyways, so I got 2 different views of Arizona. I spent the fall and winter, or fall, I'm tripping myself up. I spent the fall and maybe it was both falls. I think it was both falls, now that I think of it, just because of how time worked. Because I got there like October and spent to like... No, it would have been some of the winter too, yeah. If not all the winter. Sorry, I'm tripping myself up. Anyways, what I'm saying though is I got to experience the mild portion of the valley part of Arizona. So I was there during like the fall and the winter, maybe like a little bit of spring. No, not spring at all. It was just the fall and the winter. Yeah, I remember now. Yep. Just so I got to experience that. And then for the spring and the summer, I was up in the mountains. And so, as far as the scorching hot goes, I didn't see too much of that because I was in the mountains. But it was still scorching hot. That's what I think that people don't really realize with the mountains. The mountain folk of Arizona will say, "I love it up here. It's so nice. It's not very hot. It's still pretty roasty toasty. You can get up into the 80s, but here's the kickoff that they will never admit. In the end, I think summers in the mountains are worse than when you're down in the valley, because the sun rays or whatever are so direct that you get a sunburn. If you're like me, you get a sunburn within like 5-10 minutes up there. Like, it's bad. Anyways, moving forward though, I did get a smidge of summer though, like the tail end in the valley. And that particular year, they had like a pretty good monsoon. And so when I got down there, it was very green in the valley, which was very abnormal. Also, it was a lot cooler. Like, it stayed more around like the hundreds rather than being around the 120s or whatever it is. So I kind of looked down that way. But as far as my mission experience there goes, I'll say, like, if you're a devoted follower of Christ, I could see where it's a nice experience. I mean, I would have considered myself a pretty devout person, but also, at the end of the day, I was human. And so, because of the rules and the things you go through as a Mormon missionary, it was a very exhausting experience. What I will give credit to with the Arizona portion, though, is they were pretty relaxed on the rules. They weren't as strict, and it felt more family-like. So when it comes to the Arizona portion, I would say it was an okay experience. But at the end of the day, too, as said, it was exhausting still. And so, yeah. I don't know what else to touch on. I guess another unique thing is just where it was English speaking. I was able to be fully aware of everything that was going on. And as well, just with knowing American culture, being an American myself, it was a little hard just because the hard part is with a lot of missionary service, they like to emphasize the idea of knocking on doors, and most of the people's doors that we would knock on were not interested at all, and so that was a little hard. Of course, now I can understand why, and we'll get into my religious views here in a bit, but at the time I remember being like, oof. So there weren't a lot of people that would let you go easily. Like, they wouldn't refuse you politely. They'd be like, yeah, get out of here. I'm tired of you guys. Blah, blah, blah. So that made it a little hard. But yeah. Can't think of anything else to mention. So I'll go to the second part, which after that year was up, at some halfway through the Arizona experience, I just like gave up relying on people for the passport thing and just started getting work done myself, which is how you're supposed to do passport anyways. But I was under the impression because of a certain someone that they were gonna get the passport stuff rolling, but they never did, so I just did it myself. Because at the end of the day, I really wanted to go to South Korea, not just because that's my original place I was supposed to go, but more so because I just love Asia, as you can probably tell from my channel, and just I've always been into Japanese and culture, and I had gotten recently before my mission into Korean culture, was like, this is some cool stuff, and was learning the language already before my calling or whatever, and so I found it very interesting. But yeah, anyways, so got that stuff done and got my visa, and yeah, by the time I hit around the time I hit my year mark, I guess you could say, I'm bad with words. Anyways, yeah, I gotta go to South Korea for the second half of my mission. And with that was another half experience. I spent half my time out in the boonies, in the middle of the countryside, and then I got to spend the other half of my time in the big city. In my case, Busan, which is the second largest city in South Korea. Anyways, so let's talk about that. My initial getting into Korea was a little hard. First off, at that time, just with international travel, there was the idea of quarantining before you could actually go anywhere, you know? And so I had to quarantine for like 2 weeks or something, which that was a little rough, being stuck behind, the doors of an apartment for 2 weeks doing nothing, but being stuck with 3 other guys in my case that, were very serious about, during the quarantine, I understand doing some work, but I just wanted to get, relax a little bit, do some studies, get used to the environment of what a Korean apartment was like. But just enjoyed my time. It was a rare chance to have a little bit of a break, but the other guys were a little too fond of, let's jump in, let's already do missionary work. And so we spent a lot of time on this language exchange app, and we're trying to find people on there. It's like, what's the point of this? We can't go outside anyways. Anyways, it was a struggle. And they were all greenies, so I can't blame them too much, but yeah. Let's see, after that though, that's when I got to go to my first area. I was in Gumi, South Korea. It's technically a city, but in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty podunk. It was an experience for sure. Initially, I was not, or for the most part of me being in that area, I was pretty miserable. I'll just come out and say it. I liked getting to be in Korea and do things, and go places and do things, but at the same time, my companionship that I had, because if you know anything about Mormon missions, you get a companion, and you're stuck with them pretty much 24/7 unless you go use the restroom or talk with your fam. That's the only time you get to yourself. And I will say that mission was a lot more stricter on rules and felt more like a business office than a family. So yeah. Anyways, getting to the point with my companionship, I was on a trio. That means that there's 3 of us. And the 2 that I got stuck with, they had been friends for quite some time. Both their daddies were Air Force men and were stationed in South Korea before, and that's where they got to know each other. And so because of the military sort of lifestyle and the fact that they had grown up in Korea for some time, in that regard, they were a little bit more to Korean stuff. But also because of the militariness, they were a little extra strict. And yeah, it would not be an exaggeration to say that every day I was there with that companionship, I was pretty suicidal. I will come out and say it. I wished every day for a bus to run me over. I was not in a good place. I wish I would get ran over or have a heart attack or something. I was not in a good space at that point. They had made it a very miserable few weeks. But luckily, after them, let's see, yeah, that's what happened. I got my one and only Korean companion after that, who was the best companion I had in Korea. Great guy. Some people would disagree with his missionary style, but I liked him. He was more of a play harder than you work. And yeah, we had fun. We tried not to stress things out. We knew that, you teach people as they come. You can't force the gospel down people's throats. And yeah, and I was with him the longest too. I want to say about half my time was with him, so that was great. And as far as my time with him goes, essentially the Gumi area essentially had, this is a sidetrack, had the city of Gumi, but also had the other city, which I spent more of my time in, called Kimcheon. Kimcheon. And Kimcheon was smaller than Gumi, but they split the area so that way there was a Gumi area and a Kimcheon area. And so I spent most of my time in Kimcheon. And we got to know the area pretty well. There are some decent places to go. Not really much to do, but it was fine. I enjoyed my time there as much as I could. And yeah, let's see, what else? Yeah, I will say, he was able to leave before I did, and so then I got another companion, and when I got the other companion, that area became very much less enjoyable. Kind of like my former one, he wanted to do, basically convert a bunch of people, and didn't understand that breaking cultural and religious norms does not make people interested in you. In Korea, talking to people is pretty much a no-no, but he would want to go openly talk to people, and that's gonna scare people away. But also another thing is that he did not give a rat's behind about any cultural or religious norms, especially. I was very flabbergasted with the religious part. We had gone with this old guy to visit a Buddhist temple, and at this Buddhist temple, my companion literally started trying to teach the guy about Jesus Christ and his gospel, and I was like, whoa, why? We're on Buddhist grounds, that's disrespectful. You don't have Buddhists coming into Mormon churches teaching about Buddhism. What are you doing, bro? Anyways, so he was a little cocky and over-righteous in that way of, God's the one way, and so I will not bow down to any other religion sort of guy. So that made it very awkward and very stressful. But after him, I was able to get moved down to the great city of Busan, South Korea. I love being in Busan. Busan was great. My first companion, though, there was not the greatest. Summed up, I consider myself a shy guy, but he was a little extra shy. But he was also a perfectionist, and so he was constantly beating himself up about not talking to people and not having good enough Korean skills. Which, as far as his knowledge of the language, it was fine. I mean, his pronunciation was a bit choppy, but it was fine. And yeah, so it was a little rough being with him because he was trying to push all of his expectations onto me of talking to people, and both because I'm shy, but also because I am a respecter of other people's cultures. That was very awkward for me. I did not want to break that cultural ground. For the other ones, if that's their way, that's their way. I'm not going to stop them. But I would rather respect people than be jackalope, you know, and kind of be mean and break other people's cultural grounds or whatever. If they don't, because again, they don't really like strangers talking. They don't talk to strangers, or I don't know. Yeah, it's just not a normal thing. So it really catches them off guard. It makes them a little weary. Korea is more of a you meet people online, and if you get comfortable enough online, you meet in person sort of thing. So that's where you meet a lot of people, is over language learning places or on social media of some sort. And if you want to meet, you meet in person that way. But yeah. Or you meet people naturally through work or school, which is a little hard seeing as missionaries are fully focused on teaching about Jesus Christ and doing that stuff. Anyways. So yeah, that was a little difficult. After him, I got another companion for a short time. That was a little bit more reasonable. He's an okay guy. My biggest issue with him was he was kind of... How do I put it? He had some habits, I guess you could say, and was a little airheady. I don't know how to put it. I'll give this an example. So normal food ideas is, when it comes down to food and keeping vegetables and stuff, is if it starts to look like it's going bad or having other issues, you throw it out. But he insisted on keeping these sweet potatoes he had bought for weeks and weeks, and we were getting all these fruit flies everywhere. And so, yeah, he wasn't very clean and orderly and didn't really care about some of those things as much as he should have. And so it made the living space that we had a little difficult, to say the least. He was okay. Not the worst guy ever, but yeah. What else? After him, though, I had gotten my Korean companion back. But my Korean companion, because of his last companionship, was just so distraught and just heavy-hearted and just like depressed that he decided, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't be missionary anymore. So he left home for home. He was going to do it the unofficial route, but eventually, word caught on and was made to do it more officially. And so he went in, had a talk with the mission president. Of course, the mission president being the mission president, tried to keep him home. But he's like, no, I can't do this. I'm going home. So he went home. And so I got to end up with one of my best companionships, aside from my Korean companion. I was in another trio, and let's just say, we didn't necessarily do terrible things, but we also didn't really keep the rules all that well. We have fun. We still did missionary work, but we did it a fun way. And we didn't do this boring focus on Jesus stuff. We tried to actually make friendships with people. And instead of being like, Jesus is number one, we're like, hey, you want to be friends? And so yeah, we did more of that route, which was a lot more fun. I miss them. They were a rowdy bunch. Yeah. Korea is a great place, and that sort of thing with being a missionary was great. As far as missionary work goes, it's a touchy thing because the whole time I was miserable. But at the same time, there are things I did learn that I do appreciate from my mission. I learned I can do hard things. I learned that, well, I have determination. I'm willing to suffer through things. I've learned that I can be strong and determined and all that I said. It taught me how to speak up more. Definitely improved my language skills. I wouldn't say I was a perfect Korean speaker, but it really helped living there. It really boosted my Korean skills. And yeah, and various other things. Gotta learn a lot of things about what the world could be like. I miss a lot of things with Korea. And yeah, it was a great place. I miss it a lot. Sad to have been stuck here, but hey, we're going through life, and maybe someday I'll live abroad again. Who knows? That's what I'm aiming for, but we'll see. Yeah. So, in regards to that, though, one thing that the mission really did for me, though, that whether you are a fan of the church or not, is it opened my eyes. I got to see the world for what it was, and I got to see religion for what it was. And as far as Mormonism goes, it's this very blind belief religion where it's like you just got to believe it. And so as you get raised into Mormonism, or if you fall for it and get converted at some point in your life, it's a very much just believe it. Just believe whatever we tell you sort of religion, which most of those end up being cults. And that's why I view Mormonism today more as a cult than an actual church. Although most churches in some way can fall in that regard, because that's how most places are trying to teach it. Is just believe it, you got to do it for family or something. It's the only right way or whatever. And Mormonism was especially like that. It was very much, and still is, a religion of our way is the best way and the only way. All other ways are corrupt or whatever, or aren't true. And so yeah, I got to see many different types of people and many types of missionaries and church folk. And I would say with a lot of the discussing missionaries and discussing church members I did see and the toxicity of certain peoples, that is one thing that really turned me off. Is there were a lot of people that were straight up like robots, and it was like Jesus or nothing else. They were so blind, so unthoughtful, they had no thoughts in their head. They were just solely 100% focused on Jesus, and it was sickening to me, because I am a human at the end of the day, and I view people as humans at the end of the day. We all have shortcomings, but they expected perfection. And that did not mesh with me. I think people have shortcomings, and that a lot of those shortcomings will just remain as shortcomings. Of course, that doesn't mean don't work on ourselves, but they had this blatant expectation of, here are the rules, you will follow them. And I realized it wasn't just missionary rules that were like that. It was just the whole rules of the church. It's either you do it or you're damned. And so, maybe I'm damned now, but I said, screw this. When I came home, I was frustrated, to be honest. And it didn't help that when I came back, there was already like, go do this, you gotta do. Shooting 500 things down my throat. As a sus line, but you probably get what I'm saying. They had all these expectations of tasks and things I needed to do. It's like, I just got off a mission. Chill, dog. I need a rest. But they don't give you a rest. They already expected you to do this, that, and that thing over there. And so slowly, I became inactive. I tried to hold on because, the beliefs were ingrained in my head. But to be honest, I did one thing that most Mormons never do. I'd always been a smarter person, but never thought to do this. And in some ways, I kill myself for not doing this because I did have thoughts before my mission about this. But I decided to do some honest research. What exactly is Mormonism? What am I? I've got one side of the story, this positive bias of, look at us, we're the greatest church that ever existed, the only true one, blah 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 blah, only true gospel and all this stuff. But who was I to know? Sure, I believed it at the time, but did I really have the truth? And so I decided to let the premonitions of some things I had heard go and play before my mind. I decided to research the church. And I watched a lot of videos and read a lot of things, and I think with any research, you have to find both the positive and the negative in order to come to a conclusion, a definitive conclusion. You need all sides of the story. And so, as I studied, not just about the church, but Christianity in general, and also religion in general, I came to a conclusion. First off, Mormonism is a cult. With cults, it's a you will believe me or else sort of thing. And it's also a thing where they get to control nearly every facet of your life. And I realize they're controlling how I eat. They're controlling how I dress, how I talk, what kind of stuff I do, what I watch and indulge myself with, what kind of hobbies I have, what kind of friends I have, what I do with my time, with my money, and all these other facets of my life they were controlling. And I realized, whoa, that is a little invasive. Like, what the heck? And, I realized other things too. With the idea of God, and the heavens and stuff, I realized just how messed up a lot of it was. With them being a triomni God, where he's all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful, I realized, sure, it's pretty clairvoyant in some ways that he's all-powerful. He seems to be really strong and has the ability to create literally anything. But at the same time, he seems to lack power with humans, because he doesn't make humans do. I mean, in some ways he makes them do things, but in some ways he doesn't. And also, with the all-knowing, surely if he's all-knowing and all-powerful, he would understand, for example, the Bible, because in Mormonism they think the Bible is incorrect. They believe a lot of it's okay, but they don't believe it's the full truth. And so, with that being the case, like, with the all-knowing, God should realize that with the way the Bible is written, it would be confusing to most people. Especially because of all the riddles and stuff. Most people aren't going to understand that. So it should have been written in very much more simpler language. Which, if he had all powerful, he could have made that his dictation. He could have said, hey, write this simply. But no, he didn't. And it got written the complicated way it got written. And also with all loving, most of my problems will be with the idea of the heavens. The idea of Christianity and most monotheistic religions with one most powerful God is, there's this idea is, if you love me, you'll believe me and do everything I tell you to, and then if you do that, you will go to heaven. But if you don't love me and don't do the things I tell you to, you're going to hell. And so rewards for doing what you're told to, and punishments for not. And so I don't think that is exactly very fair. Definitely not all loving. Definitely not all forgiving. Because if he was forgiveful, rather than being like, hey, you have to do A, B, and C or else, you'd be like, okay, you didn't do exactly what I wanted, but I will still let you, in. I'll still love you. I'll accept you. Whatever. I mean, and anyone that wants to argue with me, if he does contrary to that, he's not all loving. Because loving people, accept people, they don't push them away. Pushing people away is not really that loving at all. Anyways, but yeah. So there's problems like that kind of came to light. And yeah. I can't say a lot of my things were people problems. The arrogance, the hot-headedness, the holiness. Just, there's a lot of people that just thought they were hot stuff. And just the idea of being this slave that just, is blindly faithful to God. A lot of issues with that. So I explored, and at a loss, I did the one thing that seemed normal, at least for me, just because I feel like entering any other big faith would be kind of weird. If I become a Buddhist, it's kind of strange because Buddhism is like an Asian religion, and I don't know, that's a little off. Also with Hinduism, not that I'm in Hinduism, neither was I really with Buddhism. If I joined Shintoism, which is a Japanese religion, that'd also be kind of weird because, well, I'm white. Not that I couldn't be a Shinto, but, it's just the idea was kind of strange. And so I decided to look into something that would be more personally, culturally appropriate. And so I was like, okay, what do I got to play with? And this ultimately was a blessing because I looked more into myself and my genealogy. I was like, okay, well, as far as my ancestry goes, a lot of them were Scandinavian. They came from Sweden or Denmark for the most part. Some other good portion from the Netherlands, but that aside, most were from Scandinavia. And so I was like, oh hey, I remember hearing something about one of my friends was a pagan. I could look into not necessarily paganism, but the Norse mythology. And so I got into that. I was like, okay, there's some cool stuff going. And so I studied and studied and studied and looked stuff up and watched videos and decided, hey, this is cool. I'm going to look into this. I'm going to consider this. And so here I am today. I'm a Norse heathen. For those unfamiliar with Norse heathenry, there's a bunch of different versions. So I can go through some of the terminology. So I am a Norse heathen. And with the term heathen, heathen is a synonym for the word pagan. But I feel like as far as usage goes, there are some slight differences. With Norse heathenry, we're basically more into the polytheism, where we're into the Norse gods, the Norse mythology. We're into, that sort of stuff. And that's what I needed. I needed religion. And so I learned about the gods. I learned about, how we can worship the gods, certain holidays, stuff like that. That's what I'm more so into. So heathenry is usually, it's pretty synoptic with the pagan side, which I'll go into, but it's more so about the idea of the gods themselves, their stories, more than anything. The lore and the way you be a heathen, the way you pray to the gods and praise the gods and worship them and such. On the flip side, some people, and some people aren't smart enough to know the difference, or they're ignorant to the point where they don't know the difference, and so it's a synoptic term, whatever the case is. But the paganism, the Norse paganism, a lot of times they focus more on the magic, which I don't touch at all. I don't do anything with the magic, but they will make little, rune carvings and stuff, and test their luck for the day. They will, carve runes into different items to embed power into, essentially, and energies. And they will make staves and stuff like that. So they're more into the magic idea. I didn't really care for that. I just care about the gods. So that's where I am. Two other terms that are pretty important to know is Asatru, or Asatruism, and then Vanatru, or Vanatruism. So in Norse mythology, there are two sets of gods. There are Aesir and Vanir, and so some people specifically only like the Aesir gods, and some people only like the Vanir gods, and so they worship specifically those ones. Yeah, it's a little confusing. I don't teach their own, but yeah. Another thing to realize is there are some people that you could call Odinites. There's also Lokians and Thorites. Basically people that worship specifically one god more than the others. Some people will only focus on Odin, and maybe they only pray to Odin. Some people revere Thor and will only pray to him. And then there's a lot of people too that like Loki a lot and only pray to Loki. And so that is also a thing. But yeah, the thing I really like is that it's a no connections thing. You don't have a church you have to go to. You can just, do your stuff at home, or go to a forest or other natural beauties, whether it's a river or a lake or just somewhere out in nature, and do your thing. Yeah. And I like that, again, you don't have to meet with other members. It's not a, ooh, we're all connected, ooh, go be with everyone else, yay. You can worship by yourself, whenever, however. Also, it's not a pray every day thing. You pray when you need to pray. And so, if you're having a baby, if you're getting married, if you're about to graduate from school, if, I don't know, some other life thing happens, pray then. You don't need to do stuff every day. Also, we don't really have scriptures, but we do have sources, and so you can read them at your own pace. You don't have to read the whole Bible every day. Not that people read the Bible every day in Christianity, but you know what I mean. It's not a day-by-day thing, it's just however you can. So it's easy. It's dependent on me. I control my faith, not you. And so I like it a lot more. So that's where I am. I don't think Mormons, to end this video, I don't think Mormons are Christians or the vermin of the earth or anything. I just think they're a little misguided. And a lot of the misguidance has caused others of us to decide to leave. We're done with the pride and prejudice that are in these religions. We're tired of the, ooh, I'm better than you because I worship Christ more than you do attitude. And we gotta work attitude. We only have one life. And so I'm gonna live my life my way and live a good one. That's where it ends, but yeah. Whatever the case is, this is a longer video, but I think it's also better than what I was originally doing. But yeah, maybe my video was a little vague. It's definitely a very winged thing. But yes, without further ado, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you liked it, that's great. And we'll see you in the next one. Hey, doll.